Wilson, reigning MVP, couple Defensive Player of the Years, 2 championships. If there was something higher than S, I would definitely put her up there. But Nafisa Collier, she's up there with top tier with Asia. Just her ability to play on both sides of the ball, pump fake, she's gonna make you choose wrong. I know you guys are gonna say I'm biased because I'm putting all 4s at the S, but the 4s run the league. Don't ever forget that. Brianna Stewart, the versatility, reigning champion from last year. She's got 3 of them things. I don't think there's any debate with that. This is where it gets tricky. Caitlin Clark is at an A level. I think in time she's gonna raise up to that S, but in order to put her at that level, she's gotta have a couple more years. So I'll put Kelsey Plum at the A level. 2-time champ, now took on the challenge to be #1 option in LA. I would say KP is definitely in that tier. I would love to put Sabrina Ionescu in that A range. She got that elusive championship. She's one of the best shooters in the WNBA, if not the best shooter in the WNBA.
What's good, digital detectives? Jax Riley here, and we need to talk about the biggest coaching scapegoat story in WNBA history. Teresa Weatherspoon just got thrown under the bus by the Chicago Sky organization, and the real reason behind her firing has absolutely nothing to do with what they're telling you. I've been connecting the dots across multiple sources, filtering through the noise, and what I've discovered will completely change how you see the entire Chicago Sky dysfunction narrative. Because while everyone's pointing fingers at Angel Reese and her performance, the temperature of the online conversation suggests something much darker is happening in that front office. But before we pull this thread all the way, I need you to do something for me. If you're ready to see behind the curtain of WNBA organizational politics, hit that like button right now. We're about to expose how coaching becomes the convenient excuse when front office incompetence meets media narratives. The official story you've been fed is simple. Teresa Weatherspoon got fired because the Chicago Sky struggled. Angel Reese couldn't carry the team, and coaching changes needed to happen. End of story, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. See, I've been following the digital breadcrumbs for weeks, and the signals point to a completely different reality. Teresa Weatherspoon didn't just get fired, she got sacrificed to protect people higher up the food chain who made decisions that destroyed this team long before she ever walked into that building. Let me break down what really happened, because the narrative you've been consuming is designed to keep you from asking the uncomfortable questions.
From last night's game, Angel Reese was back to doing Angel Reese things, blowing layups, getting her own rebounds. They've turned her into a point forward. She had 9 turnovers last night. I think her plus minus was -19. But all we keep hearing about, oh, she now has 2 double-double streaks of more than 10 games or 10 games plus. She had one last year, now she has one this year. She's the first WNBA player to ever do this.
Flag that most people missed? The timing. Weatherspoon gets hired in January, inherits a roster that was already constructed, a system that was already broken, and organizational dynamics that were already toxic. Then, when the predictable dysfunction happens, she becomes the fall guy. But here's where it gets interesting. Official sources won't tell you this, but if you follow the digital breadcrumbs, a different picture emerges. The problems in Chicago didn't start with Teresa Weatherspoon's coaching. They started in the front office, with roster construction decisions that made no basketball sense. Think about it, and I need you to really think about this. What coach inherits a team and immediately gets blamed for systemic issues that existed long before they arrived? What coach gets fired for problems that trace back to player acquisition, salary cap management, and organizational culture failures?
Let's quit pretending like this is some sort of history we're seeing from Angel Reese with these double-doubles. It's not. It's a nice little stat that's pretty irrelevant, doesn't lead to victories, they lost by 20-some odd points last night to the Minnesota Lynx. The Lynx pretty much controlled that entire game. Angel Reese was no factor. We need to quit celebrating. Oh, she got a double-double. Well, yeah, they kept her in the fourth quarter when they were down by 20, and she, got a bucket or 2 and got to double-digit point.
The Chicago Sky's problems run so much deeper than coaching, and Teresa Weatherspoon became the convenient scapegoat because firing a coach is easier than admitting your entire organizational philosophy is fundamentally flawed. Now, I've been filtering through the noise, and the temperature of the online conversation reveals something fascinating. Multiple sources close to the situation have been dropping hints about front office dysfunction that goes way beyond basketball decisions. We're talking about power struggles, ego conflicts, and decision-making processes that prioritize media narrative over winning basketball. Okay, now let's get into rumor territory. Nothing is officially confirmed, but the online chatter is too loud to ignore. Word is that Weatherspoon was pushing back against certain roster decisions and playing time allocations that she felt were hurting the team's chances of success. But when you're dealing with players who have significant media attention and marketing value, basketball decisions become secondary to business considerations. If this is true, and again we're in speculation territory here, then Weatherspoon's firing wasn't about her coaching ability. It was about her unwillingness to prioritize individual player marketing over team success.
Uh-oh, Candace Parker. You've upset the Reese's Pieces and they're not happy about it. They're gonna be coming after you any second. Oh, they're already coming after you. Oh, snap. Oh, snap. Candace Parker asked to put certain players in a tier list. You have the S tier, you have the A tier, you have the B tier, and you have the C tier. And where Candace Parker put Angel Reese on this list and her explanation about it, it has upset a large number of the Reese's Pieces delegation.
Here's what makes this whole situation even more suspicious. Candace Parker, who has no organizational connection to Chicago, laid out the exact blueprint for evaluating players based on their ability to carry teams and be primary options. Her analysis of Angel Reese wasn't personal, it was basketball evaluation that focused on winning impact. But notice what happened next. Instead of having honest conversations about player roles and team construction, the entire discourse shifted to defending individual achievements and attacking anyone who questioned the system. That brings us to the inevitable question: if Teresa Weatherspoon was such a bad coach, why did similar problems exist before she arrived? And why are the same issues continuing after her departure? The answer is uncomfortable, and it's exactly why content creators and media outlets avoid this angle. Because it requires admitting that coaching changes are often organizational misdirection designed to avoid addressing deeper structural problems. And if you're seeing the patterns I'm seeing, drop a comment below and let me know. The digital detective work doesn't stop here.
Angel Reese, part 53, let's get it!
We love pray-ups.
Bang!
I heard she wanted to dye her hair, and the stylist said what color you want, and she said butter pecan!
Bang!
She gets blocked by defenders who don't even bother jumping. Me bound. One more time.
Bang!
She almost had a triple-double. One more turnover and she would have had it.
Bang!
9 turnovers is crazy, so is a no-look poop pass. Oh no!
Bang!
Look at what Jason Whitlock pointed out about Angel Reese's performance. 9 turnovers, negative plus-minus, ineffective play. But instead of having honest conversations about role definition and system fit, the organization doubled down on narratives that weren't working. A competent coaching staff and front office would have seen these performance patterns and made adjustments. They would have had honest conversations about player strengths, weaknesses, and how to construct a system that maximizes everyone's abilities while prioritizing winning. But that's not what happened in Chicago. Instead, they created an environment where coaches were expected to make dysfunctional rosters work. And when the predictable failures occurred, the coaching staff took the blame. The most telling detail that everyone's overlooking: the speed of the coaching change. Organizations that fire coaches mid-season aren't making strategic decisions, they're making panic moves designed to shift blame and buy time. Reading the signals from multiple sources, the real story isn't about Teresa Weatherspoon's coaching ability. It's about an organization that constructed a roster without a clear vision, hired coaches to execute an impossible mandate, and then sacrificed those coaches when the inevitable dysfunction became public.
Angel Reese had 9 turnovers. Yo, listen, y'all gotta stop with this point forward foolishness, man. Let's take a look, man. Hold on, man. Y'all be wildin'. Y'all be wildin', son. Bruh, come on, man. Y'all gotta stop. Y'all gotta stop, yo. Y'all gotta stop. You.
Jason Whitlock hit on something crucial here. When you're celebrating individual statistics while your team is getting destroyed, that's not a coaching problem. That's an organizational priority problem. That's a front office that values marketing metrics over winning basketball. Teresa Weatherspoon walked into a situation where she was expected to make role players perform like superstars, where she was supposed to build winning basketball around players whose skill sets didn't complement each other, and where organizational messaging consistently undermined basketball decision-making. But the story doesn't end there, because Tyler Marsh's hiring reveals even more about what's really happening in Chicago. Official sources won't tell you this, but if you follow the digital breadcrumbs, a different picture emerges about Marsh's situation. He's inheriting the exact same roster construction problems, the exact same organizational dynamics, and the exact same impossible expectations that destroyed Weatherspoon's tenure. The difference? Marsh knows he's walking into a scapegoat situation, which means he'll either have to play along with organizational priorities that don't align with winning basketball, or he'll face the same fate as his predecessor. So what's fact, and what's speculation? Let's break it down transparently. Fact: Teresa Weatherspoon was fired after one season with a roster she didn't construct. Fact: the Chicago Sky's problems existed before her arrival and continue after her departure. Fact: similar coaching turnover patterns exist across organizations that prioritize individual marketing over team success. Now, the rumor territory, and I'm being completely transparent here, because honesty is our greatest credibility tool. The online chatter suggests that Weatherspoon's firing was accelerated by her resistance to organizational decisions that prioritized media narrative over basketball fundamentals. Multiple sources hint at friction between coaching staff who wanted to optimize for winning and front office personnel who needed to justify certain roster and marketing investments. If true, this creates an impossible situation for any coach.
Angel Reese has been playing the role of Draymond Green. She is the role player disguised as a superstar. I know she has given herself all of these doofus aliases. To her credit, Angel Reese has marketed herself as a big deal. Double-double Barbie, me-bound Barbie, Bayou Barbie, Bricklayer Barbie.
It doesn't matter what your name is!
But marketing and promotion can only take you so far. Her PR team has done a brilliant job at polishing the turd, but there always comes a point when the polish melts off the turd and you will be expected to perform.
The Keep the Vision analysis touches on something crucial that most people are missing. When you're watching Angel Reese struggle with basic basketball fundamentals, 9 turnovers, poor decision-making, inability to function as a point forward, that's not something coaching can fix in one season. Those are fundamental skill deficiencies that should have been identified during roster construction and addressed through player development programs or role adjustments. Instead, coaches were expected to transform role players into franchise cornerstones through scheme adjustments and motivation. That's not coaching failure. That's organizational failure masked as coaching problems. Let me connect the dots for you, because this pattern extends far beyond Chicago. Across multiple WNBA organizations, coaches are becoming scapegoats for front office decisions that prioritize marketability over basketball fit. The consequence? Competent coaches start avoiding certain situations because they recognize impossible mandates when they see them. Organizations get stuck in coaching carousel cycles because they're treating symptoms instead of addressing root causes. And here's the most damaging part of this entire dynamic: it's actually hurting player development. When organizations prioritize individual marketing over role clarity and skill development, players like Angel Reese get set up for failure rather than being positioned for success.
All right, y'all have to accept the fact this girl is not Alyssa Thomas. Can y'all just stop playing games now? Can y'all just stop playing games now? This girl is not Alyssa Thomas. Y'all, fool on, y'all been turnover police. She had another 9 turnovers today. 9 turnovers to 3 assists. A minus 19. 9 turnovers to 3 assists. And y'all keep trying to act like this girl's a point forward. Y'all gotta stop playing games, man.
The behind-the-line analysis nails something crucial about Angel Reese's situation. She's been marketed as a superstar, given roles that don't match her skill set. And when the predictable struggles happen, coaches get blamed for not maximizing her potential. But here's what I've discovered through connecting these dots. Teresa Weatherspoon likely understood Reese's actual skill level and was trying to create systems that worked within those limitations. The problem? Organizational expectations and media narratives demanded something different. I've been filtering through multiple sources, and the temperature of the online conversation suggests Weatherspoon was caught between basketball reality and organizational fantasy. She could either enable dysfunctional patterns to protect individual player brands, or she could make hard decisions that prioritize team success over individual statistics. She chose basketball over marketing, and that choice cost her the job. The most revealing detail that confirms this theory? Look at how quickly the narrative shifted after her firing. Instead of honest evaluation of roster construction and player development failures, the discourse immediately focused on coaching changes and fresh starts. That's classic organizational misdirection, designed to avoid accountability for systematic failures.
Every once in a while, there will be a role player who presents themselves as a superstar. They're elite pretenders. They're brilliant at convincing people to buy into their world of make-believe.
Keep the Vision's analysis cuts to the heart of what Teresa Weatherspoon was dealing with. When you have a player accumulating 9 turnovers with a negative plus-minus, and organizational messaging continues celebrating double-double achievements, that creates an impossible coaching environment. Weatherspoon had to choose between enabling dysfunction for the sake of individual player confidence, or implementing systems that prioritized winning basketball. She chose winning. The results didn't match organizational expectations, and she became the sacrifice. Tyler Marsh is walking into the exact same impossible situation, which tells you everything about whether Chicago learned anything from this experience. But here's where this story gets really interesting, and why I've been pulling this thread for weeks. The Teresa Weatherspoon firing represents a broader pattern across WNBA organizations, where coaching becomes the convenient excuse for deeper systemic failures. Reading the signals from multiple sources, this isn't just about Chicago. This is about league-wide organizational dynamics, where marketing considerations increasingly override basketball decision-making, and coaches become scapegoats when the predictable conflicts arise. The uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to discuss? Teresa Weatherspoon's firing might have been the most honest thing that happened to Chicago all season, because it forced a conversation about whether the organization is serious about winning basketball or just maintaining marketable narratives. Official sources won't tell you this, but the digital breadcrumbs suggest other coaches around the league took notice of how Weatherspoon was treated. The message was clear: prioritize individual player marketing over team success, or face similar consequences. That's not coaching. That's organizational manipulation disguised as basketball development. The coaching carousel in Chicago reveals something crucial about modern WNBA dynamics that extends far beyond one team or one coach. When organizations construct rosters based on marketing potential rather than basketball fit, coaches become hostages to impossible expectations. Teresa Weatherspoon's firing wasn't about her coaching ability, it was about her unwillingness to participate in organizational fantasy that prioritized individual achievement over team success. And the most damaging consequence, other coaches around the league are watching this situation and adjusting their approach accordingly. The message is clear: enable dysfunction for individual players or risk becoming the next scapegoat. That's how organizational cowardice destroys coaching integrity league-wide. So what's the real reason Teresa Weatherspoon got fired? It wasn't her coaching, it was her commitment to winning basketball in an organization that had different priorities. The digital detective work reveals a pattern of organizational dysfunction that uses coaching changes to avoid accountability for systematic failures in roster construction, player development, and institutional culture. Teresa Weatherspoon became the convenient sacrifice because firing coaches is easier than admitting your entire organizational philosophy prioritizes marketing over basketball excellence. And until Chicago addresses these deeper issues, Tyler Marsh is walking into the exact same impossible situation that destroyed his predecessor's tenure. The truth is uncomfortable, but it's necessary if we want to understand how modern WNBA organizations really operate behind the closed doors and carefully managed media narratives. Now I want to hear from you. What do you think really happened with Teresa Weatherspoon's firing? Are you seeing the same patterns I'm connecting across the league? Drop your analysis in the comments, because this conversation extends far beyond one coach or one team. If this investigation opened your eyes to organizational dynamics you hadn't considered before, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. The digital detective work continues, and there are more uncomfortable truths to uncover across the WNBA landscape. And share this with anyone who thinks coaching changes automatically solve organizational problems. Sometimes the firing reveals more about institutional failures than coaching limitations. The signals keep pointing to deeper stories, and the investigation continues. Until next time, keep reading between the lines and questioning the narratives that seem too convenient to be completely true.